Okay, welcome everybody to FAPWA's second action circle and the beginning of our first action circle cycle, which is all about transforming education. Today is July 18th, 2020, and my name is Abigail Twyman. It is World Listening Day, so today we are going to start the conversation and be listening to each other in regard to our ideas about transforming education and what that could look like in the future. I'm joining you today from my home that I share with my husband Dustin and our dog Zeppelin in the community of Knockety Bay. Our Alaskan oasis is located on northern Prince of Wales Island in southeast Alaska, which is located on Lincoln-Ani, the land of the Tlingit people, specifically in what is traditionally the home, fishing, hunting, and gathering grounds of the people of Tuxacan or the Coast Town tribe. I am honored to be able to share this space with my ancestors and the ancestors of those indigenous to the land I currently inhabit, who fill my soul with the fire that fuels my action, and I am dedicated to remembering forward and passing along their immense wisdom for the benefit of future generations and the protection of our shared home. I'm also deeply honored to be able to share this space with all the beautiful humans and change catalysts who have been inspired and empowered to join our pod. I am dedicated to using the privileged body I was born into and this platform to catalyze collective action, and I thank you for your commitment to acting in the service of creating peace for yourself, your family, your community, and all inhabitants of Mother Earth. So as we begin our conversation today, before we start, we really want to set our intentions and set the stage for why we are having this conversation. The educational system in the United States that's the system in which I grew up in and in which many of you also grew up in. We know that there are a lot of challenges. And as a behavioral scientist who loves data and loves to look at patterns and trends and identify and look for functional relationships, so what is working, what is not working, what's having an impact, what's not having an impact, I frequently will look at historical data and put it on a graph it on a standard acceleration chart to identify kind of what the patterns are. And when I did that with our with the data that was publicly available in regard to our the United States educational system and the United States government, what I saw was that year over year, over the past 100 years, there has been more and more money dedicated to the education system. There's still not enough money, but we'll get to that kind of in my opinion. But there's been more and more money invested into the system, and the data in regard to educational outcomes has had very limited changes. And now as we're our world has been disrupted and by COVID and all of the kind of events over the past, few years, it has come to be my belief that we need to rethink our approach to how we do business as a world and as a people. And that we've learned a lot through research and practice, and we have a lot of information and knowledge as individuals. And now's the time to bring all of those voices to the table, bring all of that information together to formulate a more comprehensive, meaningful, culturally responsive and relevant, and upholding the who we are as humans, to reduce the divisions, and these are the things that we care about at Action for a Peaceful World. And this is the work that we really are passionate about, is rethinking how we do things so we can come together and move forward as humans. So Action Circles is all about learning how to have more effective communications and conversations around challenging topics such as education and how we transform the educational system, as well as effectively collaborating with others who share our vision, mission, and values. When we come to this circle, and the power of the circle way, which is what our model is based on, is that we assume that all of the answers to all of our questions are within the circle, because we've brought the right group of people together who have a collective wealth of knowledge and experience. Our guiding theory is that our respective change efforts as individuals within our personal, professional lives, as well as our individual movements and organizations, have had limited impact on our overall trajectory. Therefore, it's incumbent upon us to adjust our approach. Come together, bring our voices together, guide our conversation in a somewhat new yet very old way, rooted in the traditions of our ancestors. That we have the potential to develop plans of action that are much more likely to get us to our end goal, which is truly a just, equal, and peaceful world. So really, we're coming back to the way it should have always been, right? The way it always was and the way it always should have been. So this action circle, as we begin talking this cycle, we'll have 4 conversations. Today, we're going to be, this is the new moon, this is our new beginning, setting our intentions, talking about why we're here and what we hope to accomplish. Next weekend, during the waxing moon, we are going to be talking about and brainstorming around what is possible, what do we envision as a collective, what could we do? During the 3rd week which is the full moon, that is the time when we set our intentions, we seal our intentions. This is our plan. This is what we're going to do as a collective. This is what we're going to do as individuals. And then we go forth and do it. And on the final meeting, the 4th meeting of the cycle on the waning moon, is when we are engaging in the action, and then we're also engaging in self-reflection about what worked, what didn't work, and what are we going to bring into the next cycle in order to further the conversation and further the action. So the vision of action circles is to get more in rhythm with nature with our actions. We set a plan, we talk about it, we make a plan, and then we do it, and then we reflect, and then we do it again. And my theory is that as we continue to do that, the more we will be able to affect change. So before we begin the conversation, it's important to establish agreements that will guide us and protect us within the circle. These 5 agreements are a starting point for action circles. They belong to the circle. We will review them at the beginning of every circle, and any member of the circle is welcome to propose additions or modifications. We have 5 agreements. The first is that while every action circle is recorded and made public, the stories shared within the circle should only be shared in a way that protects, uplifts, and inspires and empowers others. The second agreement is that we will listen to each other with curiosity and compassion, withholding judgment. The third agreement is that we will ask for what we need and offer what we can. The fourth agreement is that from time to time, we're going to pause to gather our thoughts or refocus. And the final agreement is that the chat function is reserved for contributions from those who choose typing as their preferred mode of communication, and for gems, which are the quotes that we harvest, that our scribes harvest, and our scribes are any member of the circle. So if anybody hears something that really just resonates with them, those gems can be dropped in the chat and we'll be sharing those, later. So our first round that we make around the circle is for our check-ins, and for check-ins today, we're going to establish our agreements and check in. So if you, during your check-in, if you would provide your name, state your name, give your land acknowledgement if you have one, and then tell us a high and a low in your life. So something that's been really good, something that's might be weighing on you. And then if you have your, we all have talking pieces that represent, if we were in circle, the thing that we would be passing around the circle. But since we are in our homes and COVID land, we have our own individual talking pieces. And I've invited members of the circle to bring something that they could share as show and tell for circle time. So I will start. I did give my introduction, but I will give my short introduction again to model. My name is Abigail Twyman. I live in Knockety Bay, which is on the north end of Prince of Wales Island. I live on Tlingit Ani, which is the land of the Tlingit people. And I had the honor of finally meeting one of the descendants of the people of this land. And I'm so happy to have made that connection. That's the high that I'm feeling. And the low that I'm feeling that I'm going to turn into a high in an action is that I have been doing a lot of work, anti-racism work, and trying to immerse myself in the life of an activist. And it has come to me an opportunity to really put my actions where my mouth is, has come up in my world. And while it's a low and it has really hurt my heart, it has also inspired action. The talking piece that I have today, if you can see this is a jar, and it has some things in it floating. I took a nature walk the other day, and on my nature walk, I found a wild rose, and the wild rose had this incredible smell. It was just so like powerful rose smell. And so I'm inspired to learn how to live off the land and learn how to use what nature provides. And so this is my attempt at extracting the oils from the flowers to see. And so it's dried flowers that are now soaking in Everclear that I'll see if I can make some essential oils. So that is my check-in for today, and we'll pass it to Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel White. I'm in Eagle River, Alaska, and I unfortunately don't actually know who the land originally, who originally inhabited the land, but I know it's not me. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what all we're saying. Highs and lows. Okay, thanks. Highs, my family is still safe and healthy, and I think right now that's super important. Lows are more just a concern for how things are going in the future. A lot of change, and since this is talking about education, going back to school and what that's going to look like and how we're going to be able to meet the needs of the students and the teachers and staff and the community and still keep everyone safe. And I didn't really have anything very close by for my talking piece. So today it's a little frequency counter, because that is something that I use frequently in my work for data collection.
Let's see. I'm Alex Weisenfeld, and I did just some research on Wikipedia. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, and so it looks like this area was originally settled by the Ho-Chunk or Winnebago peoples. I'll have to do some more research into that. And then there's oh yeah, I think that's but I should probably not go Wikipedia walking right now. Let's see. Highs, I've got good articles and good premises, very solid foundation for working on ideas and spreading those. Right? That'll all hold together when I'm talking with people about them. Low would probably be it's difficult to be motivated to do just things other than trying to spread ideas at this point. Like I need to continue cleaning my room, and it's like, well, what's the real benefit? I'm not sure yet. So I need to work on that. And then this thing. This is actually my logo. It was 3D printed from a design that I created. It is represents extra-dimensional cephalopod, which is my my alias. It's an octagon because I like the number 8. I like octagons. It's got the octopus theme, and there's most of my concepts come in quantities of 8. Let's see, and then it has inside it an X and an F because XF is kind of a phonetic abbreviation for extra-dimensional cephalopod, XF. And that's it.
Awesome, thank you. I love it. Okay, so at any point, so traditionally, kind of how we are going to run circle this, we typically will use what's called a talking piece council, which means that there will be a question posed, and then each member of the circle will be given an opportunity to provide their input and their response to that question. At some points during action or during circle, we will possibly need to take a pause and engage in silent counsel or silent reflection, during which we will all take a moment to regather our thoughts and then resume discussion or resume sharing. When we come to circle, when coming to circle in person, there's often one or more things placed in the center of the circle that serves as its focal point. The power of circle is that, as opposed to common approaches to difficult conversations, which often turn into power struggles, here in the circle, we speak from the rim into the center. Our voices have equal power, and we all have something very important to share and contribute. Our centerpiece today is not pulled up. 1 second. Our centerpiece today is the fireweed. And the fireweed plant is, it grows wild in Alaska, and it's very beautiful. And during this time of year, these beautiful flowers are blooming. And there's a lot of, some people love the fireweed. And in my childhood, growing up in Alaska, it was always my older brother, when he was little, he would, as they were driving, he would point out the window and go, "Look at the fireweed, look at the fireweed." And so it's always been something that has brought a lot of joy to me when I see it. But I know that for some people, it's also an indicator that winter is coming. And so there's some mixed feelings about it. But fireweed is also commonly found in places where there have been wildfires. And so to me, it also represents this renewal or regeneration of life after there has been some form of destruction. And so I loved the imagery that provided. And so capture the image of the fireweed in your mind, that beautiful, vibrant pinks and purples that just grow in fields that are glorious, as we're circling up today. So now I'd like to invite you all to bring yourself into a comfortable seated position with your spine straight and your shoulders back, press slightly back and down. And as you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes or just make your gaze gentle, kind of down at your nose or gently up towards the center of your forehead. And just settle in. Take a few natural breaths and just tune in to the cadence of your breath, where you are at right now. We're all in different time zones, so you might be just getting ready to start your day, or you might be in the middle of the day, getting ready to taking a break. You might be near the end of your day, wrapping things up and getting ready for bed. And so I invite you just to take a deep breath in through your nose for the count of 5. And hold at the top. And then let it out through your mouth in a sigh. And do that again. Breathe in through your nose slowly. Hold. And let out with a sigh. Follow the rhythm of your own breath for about 5 more rounds at your own pace. Grounding your feet. Getting centered. And noticing if anything in your body feels tight in any way. And just breathe into the tightness. Try to as you breathe in and then breathe out into that space. And as you breathe out, visualize a hot air going over that space and just letting it loosen up and relax and center. In just a moment, I am going to play a song that has special meaning to me and particular relevance to the work that we're preparing to do. And as I play the song, I want you to just listen to the sounds of the instruments. Listen to the lyrics as they're being sung. Feel how the music and the lyrics are resonating within you. Take a deep breath in through your nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. And out through your nose. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm getting ready to push play, and if you can hear the music, please give me a silent thumbs up. Okay, take a breath in and out. And while you continue sitting with your eyes closed, breathing naturally, you can allow your breath to come back to its regular cadence. I want you to think about the educational system and its of how you have experienced the educational system. So walk yourself back in your mind all the way back to your childhood, to the beginning of when you can remember, 3, 4, 5. And just visualize for a moment and try to remember and tap back into what was school like for you? And then as you transport yourself back to your first, second, third grade classroom, take a deep breath in and out, and just look around your mind's eye memory of that classroom. Remember how it felt. Remember how it looked. Remember how it smelled. And think about the other children who were in that classroom with you and the experiences that they may have had, and how they may have been very different from your experiences. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, take a step forward in your mind, in your memory, to 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. You're starting to become more aware of yourself and who you are as an individual, what you care about, what you cared about. Getting ready to go into puberty, and so all of the strange feelings and new and different thoughts and feelings that come with that age of just uncertainty and struggle. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, take your next step forward into your early adolescence, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. As you're into your teenage years, and you're balancing friends and homework and sports and extracurricular activities and family responsibilities. Think about your life and your thoughts and your feelings and your values. What did you care about when you were 16, 17, and 18 years old? Again, look around at the other young adults who you shared that space with and try to take a sidestep into their bodies, into their experiences, and just feel their experience, feel their joys, feel their pains, just feel what it feels like to imagine yourself to be another person in another time. And now on your next breath in, we're going to take a jump from the potentially protected, safe space of your childhood. Not all of us had a safe childhood. And so maybe it's looking back at the pain of your childhood, and take a deep breath in and step into your first breath of adulthood. When you felt at that moment that you were free from your parents, you were free from high school, and you started to step out onto your own. What was it that you were carrying with you from your childhood? The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful smelling, and the stinky. What are all of those things that you had with you, carried with you through your childhood and into your adulthood? Take a breath in and let it out. And as you continue to breathe, we're going to enter into 5 minutes of silent reflection. And you are welcome to continue with your eyes closed and reflect silently within your own mind. Or if you so choose, you may open your eyes and turn towards your paper and with your writing implement that you have. And if you choose to write on a paper, I would like to encourage you to make a circle in the middle and write the words transforming education, and then begin to consider the question, what would a perfect educational system look like? So if you just let yourself think about all of those barriers falling away, all of the negativity, all of the anger, all of the missteps that are in the past, what if we could just let those go and step forward? What would a perfect educational system look like? I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes of silent reflection, and then we will return back to this space together. Okay, go ahead and wrap up your thoughts. All right. Okay, so, ooh, I always love our opening activities. I love being able to come into this space with you all and really slow things down. We get so wrapped up in our day-to-day actions, activities, family, that sometimes we forget the power of the pause. Taking 5 minutes to sit and reflect. It doesn't sound like much, but I hope you can feel that. You could feel the power of just slowing down and taking a moment to consider a single question. So now as we move into our talking piece council, we are going to start with a centering question that we will all have an opportunity to share out loud about. And for this, for this first meeting of our cycle, we are getting ourselves grounded. We're setting our intentions. This is the beginning of the problem solving phase, right? We have to orient ourselves. And so to orient ourselves, I want to kind of put out into the circle this question. And it's a question about questions. What questions do we have as a circle about the future of education? Okay. So many times we think in statements as opposed to questions. And with the circle way, we're guided by our questions. And so we're going to start by going around. We'll start by going around once. And then if we have a few more questions, we can continue circling around. But just take a moment to think about the questions that you have about the future of education. And I will go ahead and get us started. And for this, I will scribe and type questions into the chat box. So rather than me, I'm going to step out of the circle for a moment. I'm going to write a couple. I'm going to write a couple of my own questions, and then we'll circle. We'll circle up. Okay, so my first question is, how can we educate all children safely and effectively in their own homes? And then so now I'm going to put myself on pause and pass the talking piece. So Rachel, if you are ready, you can.
One of my questions is, what are the fundamental goals of structured education, and how can we support learners in those goals?
One of my questions is, who decides what specifically people learn? Like, there's multiple different things to learn about a subject. Who decides what's most important? Or how do we decide?
Okay, my next question is, how do we go about getting everyone on the same page in regard to the direction we're going?
Another question that I had was, how do we support learners so that they are in a position, mindset, whatever we want to call it, so that they can learn?
Let's see. My next question is, who teaches, or how do we get enough people able to teach effectively that we can make all of this work?
I'm going to pass.
My last question right now, I suppose, is how do we support the people that are in charge of teaching the learners so that they are able to do their job well?
Let's see. My next question is, how do we assess whether we're doing a good job? How do we measure the outcomes?
Okay, beautiful. Those are a lot of really, really well crafted questions. We have a lot of work to do. You have one more? Okay, perfect. Go for it.
What role do the parents play in all of this, and how do we support them supporting their children?
Are there any others that we didn't capture yet? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so recently, so first, there are many of us out in out here who are involved in education. We're teachers, administrators, consultants, therapists, speech therapists, behavior analysts. And many of us have been involved either directly or indirectly with the development of the plans. In our district or in our state, they're the Smart Start plans, and I think that's kind of the vernacular that's being used more broadly. And I know that there are some concerns that people have expressed about the plans for resuming school in the fall and what that's going to look like and how we're going to mitigate risks and make sure that we're educating the children and so on and so forth. And so for this, now that we've kind of gotten ourselves centered about the questions that we want to ask and answer over the course of the next few weeks, Where I want to turn now is to our concerns as a collective. So in this next round of sharing, what I would like to, the question I would like to focus on is, what concerns do we have about the Smart Start plans? Or just the plans, and what concerns do we have in general about restarting and going back to school? One of the main concerns that I have is that I see this tendency, and I know that from a behavioral perspective, it's a normal, and it's kind of a predictable response to stressful situations where we're acting more impulsively and responding in a way that is not getting us any closer to formulating an effective response. It's just about getting rid of the bad feelings right now, and just like, how are we gonna Band-Aid solution this? And so, I've seen a lot, and this is bringing me great concern just in our world in general, is I've just seen a lot of more kind of like impulsive decision making, but also people aren't really having meaningful conversations. We're coming together and we're saying like, oh, we're going to bring the staff together and we're going to talk about the Smart Start plan. And then you leave the meeting going, what's the plan? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? I have no idea. And like nobody's really on the same page, but it's almost as if, there's this term in regard to, anti-racism work that's this performative action. And now that has come into my realm of understanding of like what performative action like looks and feels like, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of instances of performative action like everywhere, not just in relation to anti-racism work. It's like we're all just like going through the motions, and and so that is what is bringing me great concern right now.
Concern for right now, to me, safety and health being a primary concern, and how, finding the balance of maintaining that while also meeting the goals of education, which kind of goes back to my question of, well, what are our real goals? What is the purpose of traditionals, just other ways? Yeah, balancing safety and health, not just of students, but of teachers and staff and families and the community, while meeting those goals and finding that balance.
In addition to all of that, my concern is that when we try to bring back the bare minimum, like the kind of the skeleton crew, just the safe mode, when we try to bring back just the minimum level of activity, that is not actually what education, that's not how education benefits people. Education benefits people by all of the stuff that sort of accumulates around those minimum rote actions, just by people being people. And if they can't do that, then the minimum might be worse than not having it. if that makes any sense.
I tried to paraphrase that. That was a really good thought. Okay, so our next round of question is going to kind of turn that, you know, there is much to be concerned about. You know, are we just engaging in performative actions, just, you know, going through the motions, or are we actually doing the stuff that's going to make the change? Are we balancing safety and, you know, do we have meaningful goals, and are we meeting them, and are we balancing the need to meet those goals with the personal safety of others? And then, you know, Alex, I loved that, you know, because I see that too, like, okay, this is we need to do this at the bare minimum. And, you know, could that potentially produce more harm than good in the long run? And as someone who is always thinking about like ethics and morals and ethical responsibilities, to, you know, yourself and others in the community, I think about a lot about that risk benefit analysis. What is the risk of acting versus, and acting at the bare minimum, and what's the risk of versus the risk of just not doing anything, you know? And those are definitely things that we need to be thinking about as we're moving forward. So now let's kind of flip that coin to the other side and think about the more hopeful side of things. So as you have kind of been, you know, reading and listening and interacting out in the world, what have you seen that has brought you some hope in relation to this planning process? For me, what has brought me the most hope is conversations like this, where, you know, last week, Alex, you made the comment that, you know, it would, if we could just like stop action, right? It would be, if we could stop action and just like, you know, like fix everything up and then push play again, you know, how wonderful would that be? And while we haven't fully stopped action, I do have, like, this time in history gives me hope that we're all like slowed down enough in order to get back into the rhythm. And so I'm a very like visual kinesthetic person, and I visualize, if you remember doing like you know, jump roping, where you're, you know, double dutch and have to like wait to get into the circle. And in order to kind of get back into the game, get back into the flow, we need to slow things down and then jump back in. And that's kind of what gives me hope, that it's like, this is giving us that pause in which we might be able to, you know, at the peak of motivation, do the things that need to be done to make the changes that need to be made.
I would say that mine sort of branches from that, that there has been time for, and I believe that more people are reflecting on the value of the school system as it stands now. You know, for good or bad, all the pieces, but looking at that and really considering, like, what is it that that the school as a system is providing for the community, and how do we meet those needs in other ways. I've definitely seen growth and acceptance of alternative methods of learning, growth in distance learning, and not just with K through 12 education, but college, university level, like seeing that that is possible, that there are other ways to present things, and that just because it's online does not mean that it is less. It can be just as good. Not everybody has that skill set yet, but that it's possible, and that's something that then we can improve upon. Homeschool and unschool perspectives. Again, we're focusing on what is the goal, what are we trying to get from the education system, and what are other ways to meet those goals. And kind of along with that, seeing that it does take a village. Some of the really great things that we saw here in our community was, a lot of the school, as well as other organizations, really stepping up to make sure that meals got to kids who primarily get main meals from school. Like that is something that the education system is providing, is food. And so, how do we maintain food security for those individuals, and seeing people come together and meet that need in a different way. So I think those are all very hopeful aspects. But it really just comes back to like reflecting on the value of the school system, and what all it provides, and what needs it makes, what needs it meets for a variety of different people.
I am hopeful because people are realizing that the way that they just sort of assumed that their systems were going to make the right decisions, they assumed that their systems were going to support them and protect them and be prepared. They're realizing that no, they actually have to think about things, and they want answers. They want to figure things out. They're looking for ideas. They're looking for a better way to do things. And so that motivation, that even desperation is there. So that's mostly been the problem before, is okay, all the ideas were here and people just didn't want them enough. Well, now people want them, and so we just need to make sure that they're getting those ideas that they're looking for, and not just coming across the first thing that looks good, saying, oh, okay, yeah, this feels right, let's go with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's so it's Rachel, one of the things that you said made me think of about another one of the things that brings me great hope. Both of us are in Alaska, so we kind of have a perspective of a very, different type of culture and system and needs. And, a lot of our families are in rural areas. A lot of our adults, all our people are in rural areas. And that's another one of the things that actually brings me hope, is just this, this explosion of technology and new thinking that is, to me, bringing such great hope to these rural communities, where in the past it was like you had to leave, you got to go, you got to leave the island, you got to leave this community, and you got to go get educated and then come back. And now it's like, I ain't got to go nowhere. I can be educated right here in my community, in my place, in the place that I love. And like the power of that, like the naturalistic learning that can happen, right? My education and training has been all about like inclusive education, naturalistic teaching, play-based. And it's like, we can apply that to all levels of education, like from the top to from, 0 to 115, whatever, how far you want to get up there. It's like, yeah, this could, integrating technology with, traditional ways of doing things could really, I think, take our society to the next level. So I am hopeful. All right. Okay. So as we begin to come to a close, I would like you all or invite you to bring yourself back to your comfortable spot, seated on the edge of your seat, shoulders back and down. Take a deep breath in. Fill up your chest and your belly as full as you can. And then let it out with a big sigh. Put your tongue out. Big lion breath. All of those thoughts, all of that power, all of that energy that we're gaining from within the circle, we are preparing to take it out into the world and have this energy carry us forward in our day-to-day lives as we're taking action. As you continue to breathe, I want you to focus your thoughts on the words that you've heard and the feelings that you've felt throughout this conversation today from both yourself and others. And I'd like you to consider how you could turn those thoughts into actions in your life in the service of producing meaningful change. Rehearsal as a pattern, as a behavior, as a thing we do regularly, rehearsal is an important strategy in the work that we do. So I really want you to take time to visualize what your actions will look like when you're doing them. And really feel what that's going to feel like, both when you're taking the action and when the action is completed. For our final round today, we're going to take turns sealing our intention for the coming week by answering 2 questions as we close out. And I'll give you a few minutes to think about them with your eyes closed, and then we'll come back. Or you can make notes if you want. But so your 2 questions are, what is one action you are willing and committed to take this week in the service of our mission of transforming education? And remember, we're just right at the beginning of this cycle, so it doesn't have to be anything major. It could be doing, reading the plan in your district or something like that. Okay, so what is one action? And then another important aspect of circle is invitations. So we are at the beginning of this conversation cycle, action cycle, in relation to how we come together to transform education. And so I want you to think about 1 or 2 people in your own personal circle that you might want to invite in and engage them into this circle process, so we can hear their voice and get their input into this circle. Okay, so I'll get us started on our closing thoughts. One action that I am willing and committed to taking this week is reviewing all of the guiding documents from the district I work for. And recently there was an email sent out with sharing a number, I think over 100 questions that we need to consider as we're transitioning back. So my plan of action is to review all of those guiding documents and review those questions in preparation for next week. In regard to who I plan to invite to Circle, I am going to open an invitation to my colleagues here locally. There are 4 school districts on our island, and I would like to invite them into the circle and hear their perspectives. Given that this is, I too am feeling stress and concern about the future of education, and the school year is starting soon.
Action for this week, I think I want to, brainstorm, attempt to identify some of those functions that the school serves for the community, such as food and childcare, beyond just the education. And sort of at a personal level, we have made a decision to homeschool my child this year. So defining goals for what we want to accomplish this year, I think would be helpful at a very small level. And inviting, I have some colleagues who work more closely in the school systems currently, and I will be reaching out to them.
Action. I'll probably keep working on that article that I was writing about all the different things that people need to be able to deal with in order to organize institutions that actually succeed at things. Yeah, I should probably also just look at the curricula, either from schools that I went to or just local schools, to see what it is people actually try and teach nowadays. For inviting, I think it may be about time. Is this invitation like we're actually inviting people to the next meeting? Oh, okay. Yeah. I think it's about time that I invite my cohort, with whom I've been working for doing world-changing things in our own little action circle.
Well, I want to thank you for joining our circle today. This was a perfect start to our conversation to set the stage for the next couple weeks as we circle around what we are going to do to take action to create a more peaceful world for us all. And our topic is transforming education. It is very pertinent to the current time that we're in, and so I'm happy for all of you who have joined us today, both on the Zoom and the Facebook Live, and I invite you all back into the circle next Saturday. during which we're going to be brainstorming ideas. So be thinking over the next week also about what's out there. What does the research say? What's been done in other countries? What's been done in rural communities to serve the needs, their needs and more place-based education. And so I hope next week our intention is to really brainstorm and start coalescing around what the future of education could look like. I would like to, before we go, I would like to share with you kind of some of the outcomes that we're hoping for action circles at the end of each cycle. Kind of our vision, our dream, our hope is that at the end of each 4-week cycle, we have some sort of our collective action has developed some permanent products that can be shared throughout our networks. Bringing all of this information, kind of putting it into a pretty little package with a bow on it that we can share with others and gift this shared wisdom to our other networks. And so I also want to encourage you to be thinking about, Alex is working on an article. Rachel is working on homeschool plans. So thinking about white papers, letters, memes, other sorts of artwork, music, some permanent products related to the work that we're doing that we can then share. One of the things that I really like to do is make up slogans. And so for any of you who can read, who have seen my shirt, it says, "Don't be an AO," which for behavioral scientists, AO stands for abolishing operation. And this was a shirt that a few colleagues and I designed for ASIABA, the Arizona chapter of ABAI, whilst I was president quite a few years ago. And so that's another thing. If slogans, t-shirt slogans, things that we can put on swag, stickers, and things that we can, collectively put together and offer up for sale to fundraise, and those fundraising proceeds will go to support furthering our actions and be donated to other organizations. So to kind of get us started with some, things to share, some collective action, I am going to bring up my other screen real quick. If you can see. Okay, so there are two things that I would like to encourage you to do, or just kind of introduce to the circle before we close out. The first is our wish list on Powell's City of Books. When searching for an organization through which to buy books that was not a large conglomerate that is not necessarily in line with our values, I found Powell's City of Books, which is a bookstore in Portland, Oregon. And so I've created a wish list that includes all of the books that I'd like to other people to read and get inspired by. And so I've created a book list. And so if you are interested in going there just to check it out, it is a wish list. If you purchase a book and haven't sent to us, we will then send it off we'll gift it to somebody to share the wisdom contained within these books. Okay, so that's Powell's bookstore, powells.com. And the wish list is titled AFAPWA reading list, AFAPW reading list. And I will figure out the best way to share that. And Secondly, on bonfire. So every action cycle will be hosted by a different person. I'm hosting this first action cycle, and that means that I got to choose the wording on our logoed shirts and the recipient of the proceeds of our bonfire fundraiser. And so for this transforming education action cycle, the proceeds from this fundraiser is going to the Native movement, which is a movement that is kind of headquartered here in Alaska, and they are working towards a just transition. So if you have not had an opportunity to learn about the Native movement or just transition, I would encourage you to visit their site. They're a wonderful organization, wonderful people doing amazing work, and they're a bunch of badasses. And our shirt, if I can show you the other side, maybe, possibly. There it is. Okay. So on the back it says, "Together we will transform education, collectiveaction.world, and love through action." So if you would like to get a logoed shirt and support an awesome organization, and then spread our love through action by rocking our logoed gear, I would encourage you to go there as well. And I am going to drop those links. I'm going to drop the link for the shirts into the chat. Okay, so thank you all for joining us for our first action circle cycle, where we're talking about transforming education. We hope you will join us again next weekend as we continue our conversation. And I look forward to seeing you all again to share wisdom through storytelling. And please don't forget to invite a friend and share our fundraiser through Bonfire. That would be very much appreciated. Thank you and have a wonderful week.